So you've probably heard about the massive U.S. military presence in the Gulf. But it's about so much more than just troops and hardware. It's all part of this incredible, high-stakes strategic puzzle. And right at its heart, there's a huge contradiction.
Yeah, it really gets down to this central paradox. How can you have a military force that's designed to prevent a war, while at the very same time be perfectly set up to win one? That's the big question we're going to dig into.
Okay, so this brings us straight to the core of the problem, what we're calling a paradox of power. It's this deep, fundamental conflict in purpose that really shapes the entire American strategy over there.
You know, this one sentence from our source material just nails it perfectly. Basically, these bases have two jobs that are constantly pulling in opposite directions. So let's break down what that really means.
Okay, so on one side, you've got deterrence. The whole idea here is to look so powerful, so ready, that nobody in their right mind would even think about starting a fight. It's all about preventing war. But then you have the flip side, being ready to invade. You have to be prepared to launch a massive offensive if that deterrence doesn't work. See the problem? These two goals are always at odds with each other.
So when you're trying to do both of these things at once, it puts the United States in what our source calls a delicate position. Think of it like a strategic tightrope walk. One wrong step, one tiny miscalculation, and that delicate balance could tip right over from peace into all-out war.
All right, so what happens if things go wrong? What if that delicate position just breaks? Well, that's when you get a potential chain reaction, a cascade of what we're calling escalation dominoes. So let's really think about that. What is actually at stake if this whole balancing act fails? Because if deterrence falls apart and things escalate, believe me, the fallout wouldn't just be local. It would be felt all over the world.
Look, a conflict in the Gulf wouldn't stay in the Gulf. It would immediately threaten the world's energy supply, completely freak out investors, and jam up the flow of global capital. You put all that together, and you're looking at a serious threat to the entire global economy.
And if you had to sum up that outcome in just one word, it's this: chaos. We're talking a complete meltdown of markets, of international trade, and of security for the entire region. It is the absolute worst-case scenario that this whole strategy is designed to prevent.
Okay, so how on earth do you manage a risk that big? Well, it takes what you could call a strategic balancing act, and that's the official game plan for navigating this very tricky dilemma.
The fancy term for it is strategic risk management, but it's not just about military X's and O's, it's about constantly weighing those two competing goals, being a deterrent and being ready to fight to stop that catastrophic outcome we just talked about from ever happening. And this is absolutely key. Success here isn't measured by winning a war. Not at all. Success is making sure a war never even starts. The whole point of this posture is to keep the peace, not to wage war.
Which brings us to our final point. Let's really zero in on that central idea. Why is stability above everything else the real endgame here?
Because when you boil it all down, the source material couldn't be clearer on this. Stability in the Gulf is the absolute #1 priority. It's the bedrock that this whole delicate strategy is built on. And why is it so important? Because that stability supports three massive, interconnected pillars: global markets, international trade, and of course regional security. If you knock one of those over because the Gulf becomes unstable, you can bet the other two are coming right down with it.
And that's really the big takeaway here. This isn't just some far-off regional issue. In today's interconnected world, stability in the Gulf is a global necessity. What happens there sends ripples out that eventually touch every single one of us.
And that leaves us with one last kind of troubling question. The whole strategy is described as a delicate balance, right? A high-wire act. But in a world that seems to get more volatile by the day, you have to wonder, how long can a delicate balance like that really last?